Take a look at this chart showing the average price of a gallon of gas in the United States over the year and a half from November 25th of 2019 through May 25th of 2021, which is the day I'm recording this. This is an example of what we call a time series graph that shows how something, in this case the price of a gallon of gas, has changed over time from hour to hour or day to day or year to year. Of course, if you want, you can pause the video if you want to stop and look at the chart for a minute on your own before I tell you what to look at. But notice that across the bottom of the graph, on the horizontal axis, we have the time. So on a time series graph, the time should always be on the horizontal axis, so that as you go along from left to right, you are going into the future. You're going along in time order. So here we're starting at November 25th of 2019, and we're going forward in time through that 18-month period until we get to May of this year, 2021. And on the vertical axis, we have the thing that's changing over time. In this case, the average price of a gallon of regular gas. So over the time period we were looking at, that price ranged from a low of $1.74 to a high of $3.04. So you can see that the price of gas was lowest last April 24th, when it was $1.74, and then it came back up and stayed fairly constant for a while. And then once we got to about the beginning of 2021, it started going up. And so by May, it reached the highest that it was during that whole 18-month period, right around $3 a gallon or a little more. Now here's another example of a time series graph, and this compares three different things. The blue line is the average price of a gallon of gas for the whole USA. And then the red line on top is the average price in Chicago. And the green line is the price in Peoria, which was the closest thing I could find to Lincoln, Illinois, where Lincoln College is and where I'm recording this from. And this is just over the past 3 months, from February 25th to May 25th of 2021. But you can see that over that 3-month period, the price of gas in Chicago was pretty consistently higher than it was in Peoria, which was higher than the overall USA average. Here's another example of a time series graph. This shows the daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases. So starting in March 1st of 2020, before most of us had heard about the coronavirus, and ending on May 24th of 2021, this shows how many new confirmed COVID-19 cases there were. So you can see that it was highest, well, right here on the graph is when it was highest, and it looks like that was right around the beginning of 2021. And then came down, came up a little, but it's been going down recently. So let's do an example of where we construct one of these time series graphs. So here we've got some data showing the high school dropout rate for students for the years 2003 to 2009. For each one of those years, we have the high school dropout rate for that year. So we have something that's changing from one year to the next. We can show that with a time series graph. And so first I'm going to set up my scale. I'm going to put the years across the bottom, across the horizontal axis. If I do this on graph paper, I can just use the lines on the paper for where the years go. Make sure they're evenly spaced apart. We want to have the same amount of space from one year to the next, to the next, to the next. And then on the vertical axis, running up the side of the graph, that's where I show the thing that's changing over time, the percent dropout rate. When I look at my values here, they're all somewhere from 8.0 to 10.3. So I need to have room to show at least that many numbers here. I've actually got it starting at 7 and going up to 11.5, which goes a little bit farther than I need, but I do at least have room to show all of these numbers. So I didn't start at 0. You can, but you don't have to for a time series graph. But you do have to use a consistent scale. That is, between the lines on the graph paper, you should always go up by the same amount from one line to the next. The way I've got this set up, we're always going up by 0.5. So 7.0 to 7.5 to 8.0 to 8.5 to 9.0 and so on. It's important to use a consistent scale because otherwise the graph doesn't really show what it's supposed to show. It distorts what's really going on. So now we're ready to start plotting some points. There's going to be a point for the year 2003 where we go up to a height of 9.9, just a little bit below the 10.0 mark. So I'll start by putting a dot there. And then the next dot I put on the graph is going to be above 2004 up to a height of 10.3. Put a dot there. Connect the dots, and then go ahead and do the rest of these. The other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots, connecting those. And here's what it looks like. So it looks like the high school dropout rate was highest in 2004, and then it started going down pretty steadily, hit a low point in 2008, then went up a little bit in 2009, not very much, and that's all that we have the data for, but might be interesting to go and look up the years after that and see what happened throughout the next decade. Now, this is what you would do if you were drawing one of these by hand. But what if we want to do this in Excel? So that's really pretty easy to do. I just have to pull up Excel and type in my data. I'll have a column for the years and a column for the dropout rate. So the years are 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. And the dropout rates were 9.9 for 2003, 10.3 for 2004. And I'm going to go ahead and type in the rest of the data. So there's my data. Now I'm going to go up and click on Insert. And I am going to insert It's under the scatter plot menu item, and I want the ones where the dots are connected. We don't want just the dots, we want the dots and then the lines connecting them, so I'll pick that. And there we have our graph. And since I labeled the columns, it even put a nice title on the graph, and there's ways of changing that or adding labels to the axes so that you know what this actually represents, things like that. Now, Excel actually did start at 0, went from 0 up to 12. There's ways of changing that. There are ways to get it to only show certain numbers. We won't get into all the details, although when you do your project, I don't think you'll be making a time series graph, but you will be making some graphs with Excel. So we'll see some of the details about how that works. So that's it for this video. Then in the next one, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the next kind of graph that we will look at is pie charts, otherwise known as pie graphs or circle graphs.